You're listening to Pointing Pointers, the Point to Point podcast. Hello, welcome to what I think, Darran, is episode 13 of Pointing Pointers. And what I do know is that you're in Melbourne somewhere. I'm in a car.
Yes.
It's very much still the ever extending Easter holidays, which seem to go on for about 2 months these days. But we're here to look in depth at the Aintree Foxhunters. I think let's start the show by saying we did pretty well at Cheltenham. So although we both kind of
it can only be downhill from here.
Yeah, I know. We basically had the 1-2 in reverse order, kind of. I think we both said, well, we both said seeing Nominee would get the job done, but we did think It's on the Line may have actually, just for win purposes, got there first. But anyway, we've got another puzzle to solve, one that's again going to be very ground dependent, but I think it's fair to say, barring a miracle, it's going to be fairly testing going at Aintree. And so I think we work on that basis, and if we're wrong, then turn the pod off. But I believe it's going to be something close to heavy.
It looks that way. Obviously, I've been out of the country for nearly 2 weeks now, but it looks like you're still getting plenty of the wet stuff back in the UK.
It will not stop.
And to be fair, we've had plenty of rain, and we had about 70 millimetres of rain in a day here in Melbourne last week. So it's not like I'm avoiding the wet stuff completely over in Australia.
So before we get going, I spent a few minutes on the phone on Zoom again, with Jack Andrews the other day, and did our yes, no, maybe sort of feature in relation to these runners. So before we do anything else, we're going to have a quick listen to that.
So I am joined by Jack Andrews. Jack, as you can see, I'm on holiday on a beach in my coat, and you've got a black eye. What have you done there?
Yeah, I had a fall at Thorpe on Monday. That was about the only down point of the day. So no, we live to fight another day anyway.
Good. Now, I thought it'd be interesting to get someone else's opinion for the yes, no, maybe run through of the Aintree Foxhunters. Get an outside perspective before me and Darran ramble on for a good bit about who and what might win. So you are my selected source of wisdom, some judge, as we know, and we're going to start and just keep going through, much like our much lauded award-winning yes, no, maybe, whatever it was, game we did the other week. So we're going to do that. Are you ready? Press go.
Yeah.
Famous Clermont.
No.
Spyglass Hill.
No.
Time Leader.
No.
Animix.
No.
It's on the Line.
Yes.
Romeo Majiko.
No.
Fear Jaguan.
No.
Gabba Riot.
Yes.
Benny's King.
Yes. If the forecast is right.
That's a maybe then. We'll qualify that as a maybe.
Okay.
Burns Lock.
No.
Vorsalate.
No.
Premier Magic.
No.
Espoir de Guy.
No.
Fairly Famous.
No.
Rebel Dawn Rising.
Maybe.
Sea Clipper.
No.
Okay. The Beast.
Say that again.
Lieutenant Rocco.
No.
Cat Tiger.
No.
Early Doors.
No.
Cat Royal.
No.
Captain Mathan.
No.
Stratagem.
No.
So now that we're below 33-1, we will keep going for a small bit of time. But if you wanted to say no to the rest, you can. Captain Tommy.
No.
Ramillies.
No.
Is there anything else in the bottom 10 in the market you think can win? Or that's a maybe?
I was just having a look there.
I'll read them out in very quick succession, and then you can go back to any of the names. Hardline, Windsor Avenue, Solomon Gray, The Big Lens, Sleevegar, Matt's Commission, Grandois, Drop Flight, Focus Point, Rikers Island.
No.
Fine.
No.
And before we leave you, Jack, is there anything that you would like to highlight as something that could win?
Yeah, I think a lot of them, I've said no to a lot of them, mainly due to the ground looking like it's going to be soft. I see Spyglass Hill has been well backed recently. He's 5-1 now. Last time I looked, he's about 12-14-1. Personally, though, I still said no to him because those ex-handicappers of a good rating aren't normally the type to win these sort of races. They have a very bad record in them, and I think it's more likely to be the up-and-coming horse that wins it. It's on the line. I think now the ground looks like it's going to be soft. I feel like that's going to really play into his favour. He doesn't travel the strongest, but the slower the ground, it will slow the race up and it will help him out a bit. Likewise, Benny's King will love it if it's soft. I think Gaboria has really hit a good bit of form. He won very easily at Catterick. He could run well. Like, he's had experience around Auteuil and things like that in France before he came over here, so he's going to be used to those different style of fences. Could run well, and maybe Rebel Dawn Rising, a bigger price. I don't think he'll win. I think he would chuck it away, to be honest. He's tried it at Phaeton a couple of times, but I could see him travelling well to turning in, and then it'll just be a matter of if he's resolute enough or not.
Fair enough. Well, you've exposed me as taking German as an option rather than French, which is because I did call the horse Gabba Riot. But I do agree with what you said there. I don't know if it's on the line travels well enough for this race, but this is a game of opinions, Jack, and we appreciate yours. So thanks for joining us for this little intro to the podcast.
No problem. Thanks very much.
See you again soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
So, Darran, I wonder when the makers of Zoom made this piece of software, they wondered whether it would be used for people to be talking about a niche sport whilst in Melbourne and somewhere in the rural Lincolnshire. Anyway, and to be honest, if the intelligence services are using it to spy on us, they're going to be very confused. They're going to think this is all some code, aren't they? But anyway, we digress.
I'm probably the first person to talk about Hunter Chase on a podcast in Australia. I think that's safe to say.
That's great. So yeah, we've just heard what Jack's had to say, and we're going to run through the runners in a bit more detail now. So let's go in betting order, and we're going to start in the obvious place. Well, what the market thinks is the obvious place, and I'm not quite so sure, in Famous Clermont.
Yes. First, let's just get this on the line. I am doing this all from memory because I only have. You were going to mention this. I'm doing it all from memory because usually I will have a laptop and my iPad with me with all my notes. But because I'm in Australia, I don't have my laptop. I've just got the iPad. So this is all off the top of my head. So if I make a mistake in a wrong piece of form or something, or wrong track, then that's the reason why. Famous Clermont. I was with him last year. Obviously, very good season. Won at Wincanton, did jump very well, but then jumped a lot better at Haydock. Went to Cheltenham, fancied him heavily for Cheltenham. Obviously, didn't quite see it up the hill. Looked ideal for Aintree. And as they came across the Melling Road, heading towards the turn to take 2 out, I was a bit concerned because he started to just niggle away at him. And obviously, as we know, he is a quirky horse and he doesn't always find. But to be fair to him, he did find plenty that day. And good effort, really good performance. I think the form was pretty solid, as has been proven this season with a lot of the place horses running well this year. Can he win again? Yes, of course he can. I just think he's the wrong favourite, though, based on what he's done this year. Obviously, he was well beaten at Larkhill first time out. I know Will sort of eased up on him a little bit, so the margin was a bit more than it should have been. And then he won a match at 1-10, which obviously told us nothing. He then went to Wincanton. I know Twitter was sort of angry about Will Billick's ride, but as I say, people who know the horse well know that he doesn't find a great deal under pressure, and that you have to sort of kid him into the race. And if he goes for him earlier than he did, I still sort of think you get the same result. I mean, he jumped the home straight absolutely terribly. And of course, the mistake at the last was the complete shocker. But he still had enough time to go past the winner. And he just looked very laboured after the last. Now, as we know, they sent him show jump. Well, they took him. Is it someone connected?
Been a bit of schooling over show jumps,
show jumps. And that clearly worked last year. And I'd imagine they've probably done the same thing after Wincanton this time around. But he just doesn't look in the same form as he was going into the race last year. He reminds me a bit of Premier Magic, as we talked about him going into Cheltenham. I mean, Premier Magic's form is nowhere near comparable to what Famous Claremont did, because even that Wincanton effort was better than what Premier Magic had done on the bare figures. But to me, he's priced up purely on what he did last year. Yeah. He's not priced up on what he did this year.
Yeah.
And that is why I think he's a vulnerable favourite. And I'm fully prepared for him to win. And if he wins at that price, great. They pulled off a really good training performance.
But it won't be carrying
at those odds.
No.
It definitely won't be carrying on my money. And I think the very testing ground probably wouldn't be ideal for him either, because he's a strong travelling horse, and the softer the ground, the harder that is going to be for him to sort of probably win it on the. He's probably got to win it on the bridle, hasn't he? So yeah. I think he's a vulnerable favourite.
Yeah, I'd agree. I spoke to Mr. Biddick last night, and I said to him, I think the market, the people pricing this up, wouldn't want to accuse anyone in the trading room of being lazy, Darran, but I think it is a pretty lazy way to look at the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't know whether he's been back, because It's on the Line was put in his favourite to start with, so I can only presume that there's possibly a bit of money. I mean, I know we'll get onto It's on the Line in a minute, but I'd sort of heard that Derek O'Connor had said that he wasn't going to run in the race, so maybe that had filtered through to the market a little bit, so he drifted. And Famous Claremont just became favourite by default.
Yeah, my 2 cents on it is that he just hasn't had the same preparation this time, and probably on account of not quite being the same horse as he was last time, and that's enough for me to look elsewhere. So let's move on. Time Leader.
Yeah, I like Time Leader. Obviously, when we discussed Cheltenham, he was almost my third pick, and then the ground put me off, which is a shame, because then obviously I would have had the first 3 home. But I mean, what a race he ran at Cheltenham! I mean, just astonishing. He didn't look like he won testing ground in the form that he'd shown so far, and Toby said after the race, if it had been better ground, he thinks he would have won, and I wouldn't completely disagree with that comment, because it was such a good performance. He was in front for a lot of the way of the home straight, and I must admit I was slightly concerned that he was going to go and win, given that I hadn't backed him, and obviously he was a possible third pick. Now, I personally think he should be favourite for this race, based on the form the form he's shown so far this season is a fair way above what Famous Claremont has shown. We know that he ran a hell of a race last year to finish 5th. He belted the chair. He lost probably as many lengths as he was beaten by. Although we could do with Paige Fuller's her new thing that she's involved with. Race IQ, that's it. Yeah, which is brilliant. It'd be handy to know how many lengths he did lose, but it looked about as many as he lost. And of course, he had to make up the ground, because I think he pretty much got shuffled back to last place. Hell of an effort. Clearly, if it comes up very testing, you maybe still have a minor niggle. It just depends on how much rain Aintree get between now and the race. But the doubt that you would have going into Cheltenham, you can't really have going into Aintree, because he soft to heavy ground. He handled okay at Cheltenham. He nearly won the biggest race of the year. Obviously, there's been arguably the second biggest. Yeah, everything looks in his favour to run a huge race. Obviously, the drier the ground, the better his chance. But I personally think he should be coming here as favourite.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I don't have it in front of me on the screen I'm on. Who's jocked up?
I think he's going to ride him. I think because obviously he rode the Ludlow winner last week, so his band's obviously finished. And a wild ride he gave that horse at Ludlow last week as well. Tremendous. I mean, I think I'd argue it's probably the ride of the season so far. I mean, just absolutely superb.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And he can't claim on Thursday, but that usually would be a negative because obviously, the fact I think he's down to 3 now, actually. Might still be 5. Is usually negative, but he has really improved. I know Joe jokes that he's the best jockey around. Well, him and Toby, best jockeys around. But to be fair to him, he's probably not far from the truth. Hugh has looked really, really good this season.
Little anecdote. We won't digress too much, but that was the 4th leg of a £20 fourfold that I had that to pay 800, and you can imagine the feeling of slight dismay to straight elation in about 7 strides. If he was in sort of 10 miles, I would have run and grabbed him and given him a smooch on the chin.
Yeah, I mean, I just had a single. I just had a single on him. I was watching it probably about an hour after the race because it was. Well, I mean, we were in a hotel by Melbourne Airport because we were about to fly to Wellington, and we were getting up about 6 a.m. But I happened to wake up around about 5 a.m., which I think was about an hour after the race had been. I thought, I'll get up and watch it. So I just sat there on the iPad thinking, oh my God, he's going to get beat. It's going to get beat. He's just, I was like, oh my, and sort of silently willing him on in the home straight. Yeah, but just incredible ride. And obviously he was unfortunate to miss Cheltenham with his band, but yeah, he deserves to win one of the big ones this year because he's running really well.
Yeah, deserves any success he gets. Right, Spyglass Hill, interesting. I feel like I've just missed the price on this. I was going to back it at 33s, didn't. Was going to back it at 10s, didn't. 4-1, 9-2. Can probably win, but again, I just feel like the price.
Yeah, but I mean, I can see that he may even go off favourite if it does become heavy. If it becomes heavy all round, I think he may go off favourite because, as he's proven in his career over in Ireland, and also as he proved at Haydock in the Walrus, and actually, speaking of the Walrus, of course, the horse that won it last week was second to him, so he's obviously franked the form twice because he's won twice since. So the Walrus form looks decent, but it was running. It couldn't get any more testing than it was, but it was a really good performance. It was his first run for. It was nearly a year, about 10 months, I think, off the top of my head. And obviously the first start for the yard. And the trainer is obviously associated with Christian Williams. And they certainly know how to get a horse ready for winning that's not really a long distance chase, is it, this one? But, for winning a big race. So I think he's got a huge chance. Quite why he was put in at 33-1 in the first place is just utter baffling because that was ridiculous. He's won one of the biggest 100 chases of the year. The Walrus is one of the big ones. Yeah. And a great prep for this. Obviously, Famous Claremont won it last year on the way to winning the Aintree Foxhunters. So why put him in at 33-1? I guess. Then maybe bookies thought it wasn't going to be as testing, and I think if it had been a dry spring, then yeah, I probably wouldn't want to back him. But I definitely want him on side. Maybe sort of is tight enough, but like I say, if it comes up even more testing than the ground conditions currently is, then he may even go off favourite. He would be my second pick behind Time Leader.
Okay, so before we do anything else, I actually asked Regan Pallas, as he's known, about this horse's chances a few days ago, and this is what he had to say.
Morning, Ben. Hope all is well. Yeah, very happy with Spyglass Hill. He come out his race very well. He did a great bit of work on the weekend. He looks the best we've had him so far. I'm going to school him next week in Lambourne over the national fences, but very happy with the horse. I think the race will suit him to the ground. He's got high cruising speed and he also stays. So I'm very happy with the horse. Bit of luck, he can run a great race. Thank you very much.
So next, it's on the line. Look, we've covered this horse extensively for Cheltenham. Let's just focus on what's happened. You know, what the comparative differences are between the races, and therefore what chance you give him.
Well, I heard that Derek O'Connor had mentioned that the horse wasn't going to run in the race, so I was a little bit, which is probably why, as I mentioned earlier, which is probably why he's drifted a little bit, because he was put in as favourite. And I think I mentioned that earlier, rather than just when we were talking off air. Anyway,
you did. Jet lag. We'll forgive you. Yeah. So we're not sure whether he's going to run. Yeah.
So we're not sure whether he's going to run. I was a little bit surprised to see him among the entries. I must admit, maybe they might be having a change of heart with the testing ground, making it a bit more of a stamina test. Now, he came down at Beaches last year and he was near the back of the field. Quite, I'll probably say good 15, 20 lengths off the pace. Now, it's quite hard to come from that far behind at Aintree. You know, obviously some horses are, there's always exceptions to the rule, but I definitely think that you're better off being near the front. You know, you're out of trouble. And there's quite a few potential no-hopers in the race this year. So you don't really want to be stuck behind something that's making mistakes or something that might fall in front of you. So if you're out in front, you know, you're creating your own luck, aren't you? I just can't believe he's going to have the toe to be up there. And he's a horse all about stamina. I think he looks a potential Grand National horse. You know, I can really see him running a big race if they decide to go down that route next year. In the big one itself. So I just think 2 mile 5, even in really testing ground, isn't going to be a strong enough test for him. And also, he's a bit of a quirky horse himself. And as much as he does carry on finding, Sinner Nomine was able to go past him at Cheltenham, and it's a hell of a long run in Aintree. You just sort of wonder whether, even if he is able to sort of come, is he going to have the ability to sort of come past, the likes of a time leader? He was able to do that at Cheltenham, where he did get outpaced, but is he going to be able to do that over a shorter trip, a flatter track? Not for me. So as keen as I was on him at Cheltenham, I don't think he looks an Aintree Foxhunter horse. I think he looks more of an Aintree Grand National horse.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't have him, to be honest, and that's all I shall say on the matter. Darran, your microphone's just rubbing slightly on your t-shirt.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
no worries. Yeah, it's one thing. I'll listen back to it in the edit and wish I'd told you. So I have.
Yeah, I'm a producer in my real life job, so I would, I'm always telling people to move their microphone away. So yes,
you understand that.
I very much understand
that. So next up, Animix.
Yeah, Patrick Mullins. Yeah, I mean, Patrick's said after he won last time, that was at Gorham Park, we beat Ramillies just before Cheltenham. I think that's right. Pretty certain that's right. That Aintree would suit him. And I think he mentioned that he was quite a good jumper, but I mean, he's made a hell of a lot of errors last year. I mean, I think he won at Fairy House when he beat Ferns Lock and Billaway, and he jumped terribly. But they seemed to go off too quick, and he managed to pick up the pieces. He also was jumping particularly badly at Punchestown, but he got himself into contention when I think it was Chris's Dream fell in front of him, and basically he had to be pulled up after that because it just ruined his chance completely. But he was actually coming with a really strong chance. So I think he's got the ability to run a big race, but I know it's not quite the jumping test it once was. But if he starts making mistakes, that is got to be a concern. So I guess he certainly wouldn't be a surprise winner. And that he would, if I was to have a short list of 6 or 7, let's say, he would probably be on it. And if you want to back him, I wouldn't put you off, but I would he won't be carrying my money unless he happens to drift, because I think the jumping is a big concern. But I think he's got the ability to run a big race if he can avoid the jumping errors.
Yeah, I think the price is factoring in the Mullins factor as well, isn't it? The father and son combo, and too short for me. Romeo Magico.
Yeah, obviously Emmett Mullins as well.
Yeah.
He was single figures when the race was priced, which was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, what he's done didn't warrant him to be single figures. I just don't think his form is anywhere near good enough to win this. If he goes and proves me wrong, then so be it. But he was quite well beaten behind Fern's Lock. He looks a solid enough horse, and he's clearly got plenty of upside. I think he's 6 off the top of my head. So there's going to be more improvement to come. But on what he has done on the race course so far is nowhere near the level of some of these. And I think he's drifted out to a double figure price when I last checked the prices.
12. Yeah, 12 to 1.
Yeah, he's at 12. I personally would have him bigger. I'd be looking at 25 to 1 at least. Like I say, if he goes and proves wrong, so be it. But I can't have him at all.
Again, probably just a bit of a defensive price from the bookies that have had their fingers burnt with Mr. Mullins before, Emmett, of Variety.
Yeah.
He's one of those.
Well, look, I was just going to say maybe it'll be a massive gamble on the day, and they've been keeping him sweet for Aintree. But I think if they choose him over it's on the line, then maybe that might be a little bit of a sign. But if they won the both of them, I think surely they'll be thinking it's on their line is their leading chance.
Yeah, fair enough. He's one of those trainers that I just cannot get right. From a punting point of view, along with Gary Moore, John Joe O'Neill and Rebecca Menzies, but more of that another time. Speaking of shrewd trainers, Gaborio is a very, very interesting one for me, one that I'm quite keen to discuss further. Obviously runs for Greenall Guerrero combination, who are had a really nice winner again yesterday, backed quite late on. They're proving to be very, very shrewd operators, clearly very capable. And we know, from Dan Asprey's involvement in the yard and others, they're very good at sourcing these kind of horses that are well capable in England from France.
Obviously, I was just going to say, obviously, Guestkill, the case in point. He obviously had a great record over the Grand National fences himself, and started, RIP, unfortunately, and obviously started in this country in Hunter Chases.
Correct.
Now Gabriel wasn't quite successful last season in Hunter Chases. I thought he showed a lot of promise at Hereford on debut when he was 3rd. In the end, quite well beaten, but I thought he just, hadn't run for a while. Benny's King won that race. Magic Saint was 2nd. It was a strong piece of form. And then he just sort of sometimes flattered to deceive a little bit. I think he ran in 7 Hunter Chases in the end. And most of the time he was round about 72 or shorter in the betting. Sometimes he ran poorly, sometimes he ran okay. He fell at the first, I think, at Warwick. And I know the trainers have said that it just took him a while to acclimatise. And probably his best run might have been the last Hunter Chase run at Cartmel when he was 2nd time leader over 3 Mile 2, which Gaborio probably wants slightly shorter than. And obviously, given what time leader has done last season and this season, that was a respectable effort at the time. They then sent him handicapping, and he won 2 handicaps. I think it was October and November, and then just before Christmas he was 3rd, but only beaten, I think it was half a length at Ludlow. They then said he was put in the Cheltenham Foxhunter betting, but I think Aintree obviously wasn't even entered there. So I think Aintree was always the target with him. And so I didn't back him at Catterick because I just wondered whether it's being used as a prep run. Is he going to be, quite in peak condition? But what a performance it was. Now, arguably not the strongest hunter chase ever run, but I think Warwick Avenue ran probably his best race so far. I was with the third who ran a big race, was quite well backed at a massive price and ran particularly well. I can't remember the name off the top of my head of him, but it was a decent enough race, but he was just given such a calm ride, and it was the jockey's first winner under rules. So the fact he was so calm and rode him from the back the way he did was a huge performance, and from jockey and horse. So I thought after that he's going to have a massive chance at Aintree, and he is probably the one horse that I fancy in the race that hasn't been backed yet. And I think I think that's a really decent price because I think he's got a good chance. I don't think the ground will concern him either way. I think the trip is about the right trip. He clearly is a much improved horse from the horse that we saw last year. Even the handicap wins aside, strictly speaking, those handicap wins, he would have to improve to win at Aintree Foxhunters. But the Catterick win for me cemented that, this is clearly a horse who's improved. And given, no doubt, they would have left a little bit to work on because it was at the beginning of March. So we're talking, 4 or 5 weeks before the race, they would have left something to work on. He wouldn't have been in peak fitness that day, and he still won as easy as he did. Yeah. I think he's going to be a big player on Thursday.
I agree. We've got to stop agreeing, Darren. So what we're going to do, if you don't mind, we're going to change the pace up a little bit here. We're going to talk about Benny's King of Vorselay. David Christie, if you're listening, and I know you are, keep listening. But what we're going to do is what I want to do is basically everything that's 20 to 1 plus, just aligned. You're not allowed to give any more than a couple of sentences and just and I realise that's difficult. You've got all your notes at home and it's all in here. I just want your gut reaction to the following runners. Then we're going to go back and talk about Benny's King of Vorselay and then our final selections.
Okay, no worries.
Espoir de Guy.
Espoir de Guy, obviously a bit disappointing at Ludlow last time, having beaten Famous Claremont and Wincanton. Obviously the Wincanton run would have a chance, but the run a bit disappointing. Sort of neutral on him really.
Fairly Famous.
Well,
you can't pass on any of these, by the way. If you either
I mean, clearly they thought a lot. I mean, I backed him to beat Sinner Nominee at Wetherby, and he barely went a yard. He hated the ground, so surely he's going to hate the ground at Aintree. If it was drier, I'd actually give him half a chance because clearly they think a lot of the horse, but for me, the ground's gone against him.
Rebel Dawn Rising, not to be confused with Animal Rising. Whisper it quietly. There might be Aintree on the horizon.
Yeah, well, they're going to listen to a race about called the Foxhunters, aren't they? I mean, they'll be up in arms about that.
Well, reverse logic, Darren. That's exactly why they're listening.
I really
like not taking a fox.
I like Rebel Dawn Rising. I thought, I was glad to see him, not just because I backed him, but I was glad to see him win at Fakenham, even though he gave us a bit of a scare at the last again, like he had done the last April as well. I think he's got a solid chance. He'd certainly be one of the bigger prices that I could see possibly hitting the frame.
Okay. T Clipper, who's got every bit of ability to win and doesn't want to win.
I mean, that Ludlow effort was just bizarre. I can only think it came too close after the war. I mean, it was too bad to be true. The problem is the ground, isn't it? I mean, he's jocked up, so clearly they want to run him. He didn't qualify for Cheltenham, so they had to skip that. But I mean, the ground's gone against him, isn't it? if it had been good to soft, I actually could have seen him potentially running a big race at a big price, but not now it's soft.
Yeah, totally. Same applies in my mind. In terms of the ground, the Cap Royale, which we'll come to in a moment. But Lieutenant Rocco, the Beast. If you're listening, whoever owns him, I'd quite like to have him.
The second Taunton behind Macklin, very good effort. I thought that was a really good run.
Yeah.
He then ran at Wincanton as well behind Espardeguin and famous Claremont. Probably came too soon. If he replicates the Taunton effort, then yeah, he could run a decent race. I'd be surprised if he won, but if he finished top 6, it wouldn't be a big shock on that Taunton run.
Cat Tiger.
It just looks like he's regressed massively. Was well behind Benny's King at Leicester, and yeah, obviously he's run huge races in this race in the past, but he looks to have gone backwards.
Cat Royale.
Yeah, you ground, isn't it? He didn't big time leader at Hereford. Yeah, he needs good ground.
Captain Matham.
Yeah, you know what? I'm struggling to remember his form off the top of my head.
Don't worry, pass. You're allowed to pass. You're allowed to not know.
I'm good. Yeah,
move on. Stratagem.
What?
I'm keeping
Stratagem. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing Maxwell's only going to run one of his, but
you think so?
I don't. Well, yeah, I mean, he obviously only rode one, but I'm more meant he's only going to run one of them. But he floundered in the ground at Southwell on his reappearance. But the trip would probably suit him better. He travelled quite well into the race, but yeah, not for me.
Okay, Captain Tommy. We're at 33s at this point, by the way. We've kind of progressed from 20s to 25s. We're now in the 33 category.
He obviously enjoys Ludlow, given the 200 chase wins. I sort of give him half a chance in the first one that he won, because it wasn't a particularly strong contest, but I was quite surprised that he won last time. So yeah, I think connections are fully justified for going for this. I can't see him troubling the judge, but a top 10 finish, I think they'd be perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, I do think he falls into one of those slightly unexposed types where if it was a really weird race, he might sneak a place or whatever. And I think he's one of those that just hasn't been back, that you could still, there's still a bit of, there's still a bit of fun in the price, shall we say.
Sorry, Captain. I've just quickly gone on my phone. Captain Matan, of course.
You couldn't let it lie, could you? You couldn't let it lie.
No, you just was bugging me. I was like, what did it do? Yeah, it won that 2 mile hunter chase at Leicester.
Okay.
In decent style, but I'd imagine it's given Olive a run round for a father, probably more than being capable of winning.
Fair enough. Hardline.
Speaking of Leicester, somehow managed to get second behind Benny's King. I mean, he was tailed off for most of the race, and then obviously Benny's King won by miles. But all of a sudden, the camera pans back, and he's just overtaken Cat Tiger for second place. But
do you think the plan was? Do you think the plan was Cheltenham, and they got it wrong?
I think he was qualified. I think they did get it wrong. For me, the horse was qualified based on it was based that second. No, he was already qualified. Obviously, he couldn't qualify for Leicester because it was the day after. But I think he'd won a couple of points, a couple of opens in Ireland, and for whatever reason, I think because one was a novice riders race, I think maybe they thought that didn't count. But from my reading of the rules, and I know they can be confusing, and even though I sort of read them as closely as possible, sometimes I even get confused by it. I think he was qualified for Cheltenham, and also because he was entered and they gave him a weight, whereas one of David Christie's horse that was entered in Aintree that wasn't qualified wasn't given a weight. So the fact that Hardline was given a weight, I think, granted the BHA can make mistakes with these things, but I'm pretty certain he was qualified, and if they wanted to run him at Cheltenham, they could have done. Okay. But if he tells himself off like he did at Leicester, then he's got no chance here.
Tells himself off. I thought
What he did.
Sorry, I thought you said tailed himself off and not tailed himself off. That would have been. I was intrigued. Anyway, let's keep going on. Windsor Avenue.
Yeah, obviously, as I said, best race he'd run so far by Gabber at Catterick, but I'd imagine it's a case of I think he owns trains and rides in Italy. I'd imagine it's a case of giving him a nice, safe spin round, which he ought to be capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Solomon Gray.
Good form a couple of years ago. Probably if they ran him in the race that year, he might have been capable of running well. But I struggled to see it. And I think off the top of my head, he wants better ground.
Fair enough. Now, David Christie, if you are listening, apparently you very smartly inquired with Tom Ellis as to whether or not I actually knew anything, which I think for long-term listeners of the podcast is an absolutely fair comment. A question. I mean, I regularly ask myself the same thing, and but last year, almost really for a joke, but not quite, I put up Matt's commission, and I'm pretty sure, Darran, that he snuck into the extra places.
Did he?
Yeah. Well,
was he sick? Was he sick?
I'm just proving that. In fact, do not know anything. I'm pretty sure that he did, but I'll let you look at that.
I do remember the preview last year.
He's 66-1, and I think it's fair to say that he's a good horse, but probably not one that's going to trouble the judge for win.
He was ninth. He was ninth. Which, to be fair, to be fair, you can back extra places and Bet365. They often go down to 10, don't they? They've got this markets where you can take a short
coming
price.
Back to me now. I think it was paying 8 places or something, that whoever I backed it with, and he was just outside. So anyway, yeah, no, confirmed, David. I know nothing. The big man.
Anyway, he's going to do well to improve on that ninth last year. Now I've just looked up that he finished ninth. The big lens probably wants slightly better ground. He was arguably slightly fortunate to actually qualify for Aintree because the couple of horses fell in front of him in that 2-mile Hunter chase at Leicester. Shrewd yard, but I don't. I think this has been the target for him, but they just
hasn't quite.
I don't know. I don't think it's quite gone to plan. But if he suddenly found a load of improvement, it wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world if he did go and win. He sort of. I probably won't be backing him, but if he went and won, I'll be like, yeah, I could sort of see where you were going from at the start of the season.
Yeah, with the connections, it wouldn't shock you if this was a plan.
No, I actually backed him at Taunton in the open end of the chase, thinking that Aintree was going to be the plan.
I see. Yeah, Grand Roy.
No,
Okay.
He's a quirky horse. I mean, he ran terribly at Exeter last time. I know that was quite hot on the heels of the previous run, but he just flat as to deceive.
Yeah, fair enough. Drop flight.
Won at Exeter last time for Ben Sutton. That was just before he flew out to Australia. Solid enough effort. I mean, he was pulled up in this race last year. I mean, he does actually look like he's improved with every start this season, and I think
100 to 1 slightly a bit much, isn't it? For that.
Potentially, I mean, I could see him finishing the race this year. I still struggle to sort of see him troubling the judge, but if he finished in the top 10, I think again connections would be very happy, and I think he's probably again giving Ben a nice solid spin round. But yeah, that extra win was probably the best form since he's come over from France.
Focus point.
No
idea.
You know what? I'm gonna have to look that one up.
While
So
you
I
do
know I
that,
said
I just have to get this disclaimer in, particularly because he invited me very kindly to go on his owner's table.
oh yeah, so I thought it was that. Sorry, I thought it was that Irish horse. Yeah, I remember. I should just say I wrote my notes on this race before I flew out to Australia because I wanted to get it out of the way. So we're talking about. I could have refreshed myself, granted, but I haven't really read them since. So that's why I can't remember. But I thought it was that Irish horse, and yeah, his form shouldn't be good enough for this.
Fair enough. So yeah, so I was just in the middle of saying that Dan Cherriman, pilot of Rikers Island, is last in the betting here, Darren, but only by virtue of the fact that it's done in alphabetical order when it's grouped. But it is 100-to-1 chance. Dan very kindly invited me to go to Aintree, and I can't because I'm away this next week. But by the time you're listening to this, I will be somewhere in Wales. But Rikers Island.
Well, hopefully it gives Dan a nice spin round. But I'm sure he'll be first to admit that he's an unlikely winner. But yeah, hopefully he gets a nice spin round and he completes the course. I think he completed last year. Am I right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Dan was thrilled with that at the time, and I know that to be the case. And great, it's there's got to be some buzz.
We said at Cheltenham, obviously there was fewer runners than usual, and I said there wasn't many social runners, horses, to give people a spin round. But I think connections seem to be wanting to have a ride around Aintree rather than Cheltenham now.
Well,
and
it's over the national fence, isn't it? It's iconic.
Exactly. And a horse like Rikers Island is more than likely going to get you round. You're going to be nearer last than first, but I completely understand why, Dan wants that experience of riding around the national fences. So, good for him.
Absolutely. Right. Very quickly then, we're going to talk about Benny's King and Vorsoleil. We'll start with Benny's King, who is going to love the ground, isn't he? I mean, it's 14-to-1, second last time. And the Skeltons need every penny in this championship. I know this is pennies by comparison, but I don't know why he's being disrespectful.
His form, yeah, I mean his form's been really good this season. Exactly. Really good. The third at Taunton, top effort, given that him and Shantu Flyer had gone pretty hard out in front, and the fact that he kept coming again after the last behind Regatta de Blanc and Regatta de Blanc. And that thing that finished fourth at Cheltenham, I want to say Darran. Is it Darran? Is that right? Completely escaped the ex-pipe horse. Sorry, Sarah,
Django?
if you're listening. Django, that's it, Django. Apologies, Sarah, for forgetting your horse's name, because I think she listened to the Cheltenham preview. And then went to Weatherby, and obviously was second behind Nomine, which we know now is definitely top class form.
Yep.
And then absolutely obliterated the field at Leicester, jumped them silly, was gifted an easy leader, which I didn't think he would be. Looking at the runners before, and they looked like they were a potential handful of front runners, but it didn't turn out. They just let him get on with it, and he jumped for fun out in front, and won by I think it's about 27 lengths in the end. Obviously, a huge run in the race last year. I think he's capable. Obviously, he's more than capable of being bang there. But I think he's as good as he was last season, but have the likes of Time Leader, improved passing, Gabarat, the Spyglass Hill, obviously top class form as well. I don't know. I can he win it? Yeah, possibly, but I can see why. I definitely couldn't put anyone off backing him each way at 14-to-1 because he's a really good form this season still, and obviously he went close in the race last year, so there's every chance that he's going to be in the first 3 or 4 again.
Absolutely. And if he's anything like 14-to-1 that he is now at the time of recording, we're going to try and get this out as early in the week as possible. The skeleton factor and the fact that the general public will look at this on the day and look through, not have a clue who any of these horses are, who any of the keepers are, and half the jockeys, see Dan Skelton and go, that'll do, and it will be backed. Like it will not go off 14-1. I don't think that's.
Also, what people like to look at is last year's race. I mean, we saw it at Premier Magic at Cheltenham. Again, you know, you had people sort of, you know, even someone like Lydia Hislop tips Premier Magic up, but like, oh, based on last year's form, like, well, oh, he's a great each way bet. It's like, well, yeah, but that's what he's been doing this year. Now, Benny's King clearly has been running as well as he has been last year. So, but the fact that he was second in the race last year, he's going to attract people just because he ran well in the race before. And to be honest, I'd arguably give him a stronger chance than Famous Claremont. I think his form has been better than Famous Claremont this season.
And you're taking a 10-point difference, you know. But the only thing that puts me off him slightly is absolutely no disrespect to this year's jockey, but I would love to have seen John Dawson on and given the ride he gave him last time.
Yeah, was it short? To be fair to Sean Connor, I think is it Sean Connor? I think that's his name. He rode him at Sean O'Connor. Yeah, he rode him at Leicester. Gave him a very good ride that day. And strictly speaking,
totally capable jockey.
He should be. Yeah. But he should be claiming 7. So that would be a slight negative. Where of course John wouldn't be. You know, that isn't a claimer, is he? So that would be a slight negative. But essentially, he comes here in really good form, you know. And if he did go and win, then fair play to him, because he's to be running as well as he is at his age is tremendous. Yeah, absolutely tremendous.
Last and not least, hope you haven't turned it off, David. Vorsoleil.
I mean, surely they would have been hoping for decent ground. I mean. You know, David was saying before Cheltenham that he's come to himself. You know, we talked about him in the Cheltenham podcast. I mean, the form he's shown so far this season is way below what he's shown in the past. So that would be a big concern for me, especially on this ground, because as David sort of said himself, he thrives in the spring, but it's not spring ground. You know, it's going to be soft, heavy in places at best, I would imagine, if the forecast is correct. So you sort of half wonder whether David will even bother sending him over, and might just keep him back and hope for better ground at Punchestown.
Yeah.
But I just,
and a shame not to see Pearce locking here, but we won't dwell on that. We've made our feelings clear on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit I haven't seen I know he's been taken out of the race now, but I haven't seen the Ferry House race, but obviously got beat in a very short odds. I was surprised by that. Yeah,
I saw you tweet actually saying you've just woken up and seen Famous that one. Must have.
Yeah, I was really shocked. I mean, he just went absolutely bat crazy at Cheltenham. Apparently, they're blaming one particular member of the crowd for causing it, which seems slightly strange. I just think the whole atmosphere must have got to him, and because he looked buzzed up. I on the feed that we get at work, I was watching him go down the walkway. Thought he's a bit buzzy. Obviously, he had the red hood on, and then they took it off at the start, and that is when he really went crazy. Like, and I just thought there must be people laying him on the machine now. Looking at this, because he was a doubtful stayer in my mind anyway, and he's wasting so much energy down at the start. I was like, he's got no chance now. Literally, if he went and won after doing what he's done, I would have been really, really shocked. And duly, he was very keen in the race and sort of stopped. I think he was still just in front, 3 out, I think, just before they turned from home, and obviously ended up pulling up. It's just...
Yeah, and as we know, that race leaves its mark.
It does. And look, and actually, horses that run in Cheltenham can sometimes run below form on their next start, even regardless of how good they've run. So it could just be that Cheltenham factor that he had a hard race there. Obviously, the fact he must have used up a lot of energy, and especially nervous and to try and run again, even in the Ferry House race was, probably just a bit too much. So hopefully they can get him back, because he's obviously a top class horse. But yeah, it's just it's just sort of, he's obviously not fully there mentally. I would have actually taken him on for Aintree on the back of that Cheltenham effort. Going into Cheltenham, he was going to be my pick for Aintree. Looked tailor-made, but given how much he bored over at Cheltenham, that would have been a concern at Aintree.
Okay. Let's finish up with our. I know this is one race, and but we're gonna have a nap for win purposes. Our each way selection and our long shot to hit the extra places. So the one you think is going to win, you will have a little minute to think about this, which Steph can edit out.
No, I don't.
He hates it when I name checker, so that way make the pod. A horse to win, an each way selection, and a long shot for the extra places. I'm going to go first, Darran. I'm going to go first.
Yeah, go on then.
In a bid that people don't think that I'm just weighing in with you. You see what I've done there?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go. And yes, you do have to think about prices. And we don't know what the market is quite going to do at this point. We're, a good few days away. But I'm going to go Spyglass Hill win. Gaborio, or Gabba Riot, as I've previously called him, each way. And I really, really want to go Benny's King for the long shot for the extra places, but I feel like I've used that.
Isn't he about the same price as Gaborio?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. So I've already kind of wasted that dart. So I'm therefore going to go Captain Tommy for a long shot for the extra places, just for a chancy one. What are you going to do, Darran?
Well, look, obviously I do my written piece as well, and
okay, yeah.
I will be tipping up Time Leader in Spyglass Hill, unless one of them gets stupidly short by chance. By the time I get to put it out there, I've backed them both already, and so the softer the ground is, the more confident I'd be about Spyglass Hill, and that obviously isn't quite in Time Leader's favour, but he obviously comes here in top class form. I sort of think one of them is the most likely winner.
Okay. So you've not followed my rules there, Darran. You've not followed my rules.
No, I've not followed your rules, but
okay, so you're going to you're basically dutching.
I like them both.
Yeah, you're dutching the win purposes, but give it their case. We'll just have a long shot for the extra places.
Gaborio will be my third bet in the race, because if there is to be one at a double figure price that goes and wins, I think it'll be him. I think he's a much improved horse. Obviously, wasn't a million miles behind Time Leader at Cartmel last year, and I think he's improved since then. And everything looks set for him to run a big race. If you want one at a really big price, I might not be backing him myself, so I just want to put that up, that he might not have my money, but Rebel Dawn Rising would be the one that I think has the ability to outrun his odds around about 33 to 1.
With a good pilot.
Dale Peters is top class. I think you've mentioned on the podcast before that
we did.
It doesn't ride as often as he does. I think Sam especially said that, and it is a shame he doesn't ride as much as he does. I mean, he still claims 5 under rules. I mean, it's great when you punt him, because it's an extra advantage. But yeah,
he does what he wants when he wants, Darran.
Exactly. Look, it's up to him, isn't it? Up to him. But he is very good.
And one more disclaimer. Neither of us would be surprised if the big lens popped up and ran the race of a lifetime to chin us all.
Exactly. If he found, look, there has been the odd big. I mean, Joe trained the big price winner, didn't he? Cousin Pascal, although that wasn't necessarily a big shot, but was it? Dr. Richard Newland had a massive price winner of this. That was a complete shock. So if we're going to get a repeat of that, then Big Lens might be the one.
Exactly. So that's great. Thank you very much for your time. It'll be a very interesting race. I absolutely love this race. I to be honest, I prefer it to the Cheltenham
Yeah.
Fox because I just think it's a cracking race, brilliant spectacle for all the obvious reasons, and we wish everyone taking part of it a safe voyage.
Yeah, I mean, I have a much better record of finding the winner in this than I do Cheltenham. So maybe I found the Cheltenham winner means this will be one year where I do terribly at Aintree. But despite the fact there's usually a much bigger field, of course, and there's a bit more, fallers and what have you. I do think it's slightly easier to find the winner of. But let's see this year how it pans out. But yeah, hopefully everyone, if you are listening and taking part in the race, hopefully you have a nice safe spin round and you come back home safely.
Yes, indeed. And Animal Rising, knowing that Animal Rising are listening to this, Darran, we obviously want the same for the horses. And of course, Darran, we want to say whether they're listening or not. Obviously.
Yeah.
Hey, have you seen
the horses aren't going to be listening to podcasts, are they?
No, not the horses.
Well, to be fair,
Animal Rising, not the horses, Darran.
No, but that's why I did mention the horses. Obviously, I want all the horses to go back safe and sound. But to be fair, Hewitt did watch the Cheltenham Gold Cup, didn't he? So, who knows?
Everything is possible in this wonderful world we live in. Right, let's leave it there. Thanks very much for listening. And we will be back, I think, next week with a wrap-up of things that have been happening between the flags. So, Darran, thanks a lot for your time, and we'll see you all soon.
No worries.
You're listening to Pointing Pointers, the Point to Point podcast.